Hello, this is Tom Brevoort. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 240. My jingo, by crikey, that's high. We're getting there. You're with your High Priest of Khonshu, Ray. Hello, everybody. And if you look up into the night sky, you will see a waning crescent, okay? But don't be confused. We're going to do a waxing crescent. I know, it's all in the details. And it will be a LUNAR-PICK modern run review, Moon Knight, Volume 8, Issue 14, Birth and Death, by Part 5, by Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood. And joining me, returning onto the show, is Drew Tombz. Drew, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me again, my friend.
No worries. Drew is a top-tier Patroony, and of course, at the start of each show, a huge thank you to our Patroonies. Those you'll see on co-producers and executive producer credits on each of our episodes. Also, if you go to itkmoonnight.com, you'll see our Patreon temple, so you can have your name shining in bright lights there, similar to Drew. A big thank you to Daniel, Drew, Justin, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, and Michael. And of course, we do have a few sponsors. Drew Tombz, of course, here he is, one of our top tier patroonies and top sponsors. You can follow Tombz on SoundCloud, and Drew's other moniker, Lurk Music, on Bandcamp. And this is music produced by Drew, some dance music on SoundCloud, and on his Bandcamp there's some horror and sci-fi inspired soundscapes, so go check that out. More details in our show notes and a bit later in the show. Also, Daniel Doing, a great creator, awesome bloke, and creator of Fringe Knight, an original indie comic based on Erie, Pennsylvania's very own mysterious superhero. And finally, Dreamland Comics. Get your back issues there, I tell you. You'll get a discount, I can guarantee you that. The Superhero Superstore.
So, comments on those. I really need to check out Fringe Knight.
Yes.
And Schomburg. I looked it up, actually. Schomburg, because it's so funny. So many episodes, you'll talk to people not knowing where exactly they are in the U.S. Right. And you so politely are always like, so I don't know if you're close or not, but you could go check out Dreamland Comics. Somebody who's in like Maryland or something like that.
Right, yeah.
I looked it up in Schaumburg, or Dreamland is like less than 45 minutes away from where I'm at in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
So one of these weekends, I'm going to pop out there and just go on a shopping spree and be one of the loonies to finally stop in.
Yeah, just go to the counter and just say moon. And they'll just go, and I'll wink at you. I know what you're talking about. All right.
They'll open a secret vault in the back.
But that'd be awesome. So again, any loony listeners out there, Illinois, there it is. I thought, Chicago, it sounded like that was close to Illinois.
It's a suburb of here. I can't remember which direction, but I looked it up, and it's less than 45 minutes or so, depending on traffic.
Oh, nice. Okay, worth it. Definitely worth it. Give it a go. not you. In general, everyone.
In general, everybody should go.
Yeah, exactly. No matter where you are. Now, Drew, we're gonna dive into our LUNAR-PICK modern run review here. Now I split it up there. The bare bones. Are you okay to read some of the bare bones? But
want me to just go every other one?
Yeah. I've got your initials up against there.
Oh, never mind. I'll take the ones that had me on.
Yeah, no worries. And this was released May 17th, 2021. Is that right? No, that's not right. Oh, I got it wrong already. Oh, God. Anyway, I'll fix that up. I've got the prompt sheet haphazardly done. It was released a lot earlier than that. We're talking about Birth and Death Part 5.
We have 2016, right?
2016, yeah. 2017, I thought was the thing. The prompt sheet, Ray. Get your act together. Writer Jeff Lemire, penciler and inkers Greg Smallwood, colours Jordie Bellaire, letterer VC's Cory Petit, and editors Jake Thomas and Kathleen Wisneski. Now, this is available on floppy format, or it's on digital, or it's in trade paperback, which is out of print, unfortunately, or the hard copy, which I'll be reading it from. That's, I think, out of print, but fear not, because they are re-releasing this all early next year. Complete
they
collections.
are. They're redoing the Lemire stuff.
Yeah. So
I have the first two collections. I can't remember what the titles are, but the third one I can't find anywhere for like less than $80-something.
Oh wow! Oh no!
Yeah.
Just hold on.
I read through all of the Lemire run with physical copies, and then I had to do digital for the last one because for some reason that third installment is really hard to find.
Save your pennies. You can use that $80 for the complete collection and then some. So
that's good. No, I know we're getting that rerun of that re-release collection of the Houston run and all that next year too. So lots of good stuff coming.
There's a lot of stuff. So yeah, so loonies as well. Like a little hint as well. Don't go paying $100 on eBay for stuff. It is going to be re-released very soon. So yeah, and also digital. It's also digitally in a collected issue format as well. So I'm sure you can get that similar to its hard copy counterparts. Now, Drew, I've got the synopsis here. So what we do, Loonies, bare bones, it's a summary in case you want a little bit of a general reminder on what this issue that Drew and I will be talking about. And then we'll be going into awesome, Drew. I see here you filled out the notes.
Oh, cool. I didn't know if that was going to update on your end too.
Absolutely. And then we're going to a wax lyrical and Wayne lyrical on writing, art, themes, characterizations, references, all that sort of stuff. Any other little general notes, and then we will cap it off with a moon rating. Now, Drew, before you start the bare bones, I always ask as well, do you have a particular inkling towards a moon rating system? There is the vanilla rating, and there is the Konoshu rating system.
I've always enjoyed when people went for the Konoshu, and I figure, for my first review episode, I had to go with it just for the fact that there's a rating called Big Fuck Off Moon. So.
That's it. Well, that's where we're heading.
Oh, I've never even, this comic's going to rate higher, but I never noticed that in number 8 is Big Beautiful Yellow Man.
Konoshu has, I don't know, I can't read his mind. I would love to travel in his mindscape every now and again, just to see how he came about that. But absolutely.
I dove into some of the really old episodes on a road trip recently, and just some of the old ones with Konoshu on. There's some really funny stuff.
Oh yeah, he's a gas. He's funny. Incidentally as well, a little shout out. Connor's got another podcast, Wine Mums, if you want to check that out. All geeky stuff. He's right in his element there. Anyway, Drew, if you'd be so kind as to read the bare bones, which I will say is the one that I wrote back in episode 14.
Yeah, of course.
Why not use it? Yeah. Oh, hang on. So actually, we're doing bits here, so let's lead off. Here we go. Right. In the past, Marc Spector, mercenary, is left for dead in the Egyptian desert, and as he makes his way across the sands, his other identities begin to speak to him. Stephen and Jake comfort Marc and ask him to rest. They also assure him that he will be coming soon. As night falls, Marc starts to hear Khonshu's voice, and it's as if by the light of the moon, Marc is led towards a great temple. A dying Marc pleads for life and strikes a bargain with the apparition of Khonshu, who dubs him Khonshu's Knight.
Back in the present, Mr. Knight walks through the hospital in search of Khonshu. He hears a scream at what appears to be Marlene, but as he enters one of the rooms, he is greeted with Amut and one of her jackals. Mr. Knight is drugged and laid out on the table in the room. Amut has rigged him up for shock therapy, and in a strange display of parallel lives and realities, Khonshu is also shown laying the dying Marc onto an altar in the temple. As the switch is flicked and a jolt of current surges through Mr. Knight, it does the same to Marc in the past, and Marc finds himself resurrected in the temple, where he made a deal with Khonshu. He sees Marlene there, and to his surprise, she said that he was dead only moments ago. Marc, now having been reborn by Khonshu, has a clarity of purpose, and he describes himself as a ghost, a specter of the moon's night of vengeance. He grabs the robe off the statue of Khonshu, proclaiming he has work to do.
Marc's resolve is reflected in Mr. Knight, and all of a sudden, Mr. Knight breaks free of the shock therapy restraints and overcomes Umut and her jackals. He heads to the rooftop of the hospital and finds Khonshu there waiting for him. Khonshu throws illusion after illusion at Marc, but none can overcome him. Left with only Khonshu in front of him, Marc refuses to be afraid anymore, and it's this determination that weakens Khonshu. Marc combines all his identities, and in one final act of defiance, he crushes Khonshu into dust.
With Khonshu gone, there is a peaceful calm over Marc, and he looks up at the moon and relishes in the silence. As it begins to rain, Marc questions a little the reality he is in, but he doesn't let it worry him for too long. The rain on his face feels real enough, and for Marc, that's good enough for him.
Yes, Looney. So there you have it, a summary of bare bones of issue 14 from Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood. Now, overall impressions, Drew. This was an issue that you chose, a very strong issue. So no surprise that you probably liked it. But overall impressions, what did you make of this last issue?
I really loved it, and so without getting overly into it, I know we originally were going to talk about the Shield card issue during the bottom run, and I'm actually glad we switched to this one because when I first dove into Moon Knight, I actually told a fib on the last episode. I initially started with the Lemire run. I tried the Lemire run first because the artwork intrigued me so much. And it's obviously, lauded as being one of the best, and it is. But I didn't quite get what was going on after 4 or 5 issues. I was really confused, really intrigued. So then I went back to the bottom, and again, like we said in the last episode, the bottom is absolutely fantastic, but I still didn't quite get what had gotten this poor man to this point. That's when I went back and read everything else. But having that really discombobulated experience with the Lemire run as my first experience with Moon Knight solo, having gone back and gotten all of his 30 whatever years of history and then getting up to this issue made this part of, like, watching him overcome everything he overcomes in this issue after reading his whole life story was just so wildly powerful to me. Way more so than if I'd let myself finish this when I tried it the first time. It would have been cool, but I wouldn't have quite had the weight to it. Yeah,
as well, my co-host Rebecca as well also kind of nabbed it. When people ask what we should read first and what's the best run, it's funny, like, the Lemire run, for me, as well as yourself, is one of the strongest ones, but I would never wish it on someone to read first, because...
No, it was so confusing for me, because, we've talked about this plenty in the past episode, but me coming into Moon Knight officially because of something like Damnation, hopping into something like the Lemire run, it was just so discombobulating, and in my head, I already have this preconceived idea of Moon Knight as being this kooky lunatic who follows an actual god. And, for a good chunk of this issue, and not this issue, this run, actually pretty much the whole thing, you could question whether that god is real at all. That's part of the appeal of it. But as a first-timer, I wanted Khonshu to be real. I wanted this to be cut and dried. And I was so confused by, issue 4. 1, I didn't know any of the characters. 2, I already knew how I wanted his reality to be, and it wasn't shaped, and it's perfect writing for what it's going for. But as a newbie, I was just like, man, this is tossing everything up in the air. I haven't even gotten started yet.
It certainly, it certainly is a strong issue for me. Looking back on it now, like rereading it now in prep for this episode, it's strange because I've got this additional lens now, and I've got in the back of my mind what you mentioned actually in again the last episode that we did, the understanding DID and the stuff that we've learnt so far through fellow loony Lena, and I was reading this, I was going, okay, this melding, there's a want here to meld these identities. We know that that's something that people still try to do, like, you know, and therapists still try to actively do for DD. It doesn't necessarily work for others. But there's that, but there's also this thing about it not being real. What is conscious? Is this, and I was linking this to the Jed MacKay run, where Jed MacKay is not really concerned about the DID. It's more about how Khonshu has affected Mark's brain, and whether this stuff that's happening to Mark in this issue 14 and in the whole series is much to do with Khonshu's influence. You know,
yeah.
It just gave it another level, another layer of what to think about when I was rereading it. I found it just quite interesting.
You're really throwing me for a loop here too, because now I'm like really overthinking it, and I'm just like,
yeah.
They had that whole talk with the therapist where they straight spell out your brain was like, physically touched by an interdimensional being.
Yep.
What does that say about you on a scientific level that's changed in your anatomy? But at the same time, now I'm starting to see these like theories about Hunter's moon being another personality of his, and if that's the case, is Khonshu influencing any of this at all?
Yeah.
Is there actually another fist of Khonshu, or is this another part of Mark's DID evolving? Which is a really interesting concept, which then, just like the Lemire run, starts to toss up these ideas window. And I think that's one of the best parts about this character.
Yep.
And the best runs of his, I feel so many fans agree on, is that the ones where it's very ambiguous as to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Because I like when it's spelled out, cut and dry. I like the idea of Khonshu being a physical, real deity that's affected Mark. But it's still fun for me to then start to feel a little bit crazy myself. Like, I don't know. And this run, more than anything, made you start to feel unhinged. It
certainly did. It's so interesting to put this side by side, and I know we have the Bemis run in between, but put this side by side with the likes of, say, Serpent War or the Moon Knight Annual with Kang, where it's very much spelled out to you that Khonshu is, or Age of Khonshu by
right. And it's still so fun. I just reread all of Age of Khonshu, and it is an absolute blast.
It is. It's everything an Avengers comic should be.
But it's also super cool to see that get tossed out the window the next time he pops up. And I know it might not be the case in the context of canon, but it's kind of fun to imagine that Mark himself is on just as much of a roller coaster as we are as the reader. Like, he doesn't know by season if what's happening is real or not. So I kind of try to look at it that way. I'd like to think I'm just as in the air as Mark is.
Yeah. Well, do you want to kick us off with one of your points then? One of the defining, something that stuck out, I guess, to you from this issue.
Yeah. So I'll just start with like really basics. Like as far as the art, Smallwood is an absolute genius.
It's fantastic.
The interviews you did with him about how this run came together, I just found so fascinating. I think this is some of the best art that Moon Knight's ever had, and I would kill to see these two, or even just this art, done for another one of his runs. But specifically with these later issues, I love the way they use the whites and the blues and the purples on every. It's such a nice color change from how dark so many of the other runs are.
And we do get from the first couple of pages, we get that nice sandy kind of as a point of difference, the retelling of the origin. But you're right. I mean, what else can you say about Lemire? Smallwood, sorry. He actually even says as well in the afterword at the end of this issue, working on this run for 3 years actually made him a Moon Knight fan. He had no idea who Moon Knight was before, but he fell in love with him.
So cool.
This. Yeah.
Makes you wonder what he would do if he ever got to hop back in on him,
I would love that. I mean, I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, I mean, most recently, I know that he wanted to pitch stuff. I guess that's what you do as an artist. You just pitch stuff to Marvel and DC or whatever, and they'll pick it up. I'm really hoping they do pick him back up. He's a real talent, and you see some of his other stuff. Did you read that? Was it? I think it was might have been the Hulk, but it had Doctor Strange in it. And Smallwood did that as well. It was
I actually went in my Marvel app. I haven't done this until recently. I don't know why, but I'm always just adding story arcs that I want to read specifically. But I've started going in and finding artists that I really like. And I found a bunch of I'd have to go dig it up, but I added a bunch of runs that Smallwood's done artwork on, just because I want to see how he illustrates other stuff. And I do remember one of them that I added being something Hulk related.
Yep, and we talked about the Damnation series. He did a connecting cover to that as well. I made sure to get all of them beautifully done. I mean, if you want to see Smallwood do Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, he's a big fan of Midnight Suns as well. He's done pictures for that. So
that
really,
whole pitch that he was taken to, I think that's such a missed opportunity that group of Midnight Suns hasn't been picked back up yet.
Oh, yeah.
And if he was the one to do it, my goodness, that would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, sticking with the art as well here, what I do like is a recurring motif of what Smallwood does with his layout is the focus on Marc's eyes. And we actually get that throughout the whole series. It starts off with his eyes very dazed, and by the end of it, this issue, you can see a focus on them.
It was really cool seeing you point that out in the notes, because I went back through the issue, and especially in this last issue, there's so many panels of him looking straight at the camera, so to speak, like he's looking. So you get a clear shot of the fear in his eyes, the determination in his eyes towards the end, and like you said, the clarity at the end of the issue. And it makes me want to go back and reread the whole arc just to pay attention to the facial stuff, because they really do show a lot of his face in this, and like to great effect.
Yes, and we know Greg Smallwood fashioned Marc after his own face as well. So very well done here. Let's go to I guess do you mind, Drew, if we jump to the very end bit, like this whole culmination stuff? I just want to get your thoughts on it, because it was such a powerful thing, and this is what I was talking about. It kind of had me rethinking how stuff is and works with DID. But what are your thoughts on this final kind of reconnection with Khonshu?
So I can kind of tie this into one other point I had on here. That very first panel where he's walking through the desert, it's been a minute since I read the issue right before this, but I believe this is right after he was he had the shit kicked out of him by Bushmen and was left for dead, right?
Yep.
And he'd been trying so hard to fight off these personalities even back then. Seeing him in the desert, especially, like I said, after reading all of his stories over the last year or so, just rereading through everything, and seeing so many of these struggles between him and his personalities in different times and all these things, seeing him on the ground in the desert asking Jake and Steven to stay with him because he's scared, like that's pretty heavy, like for somebody that you forget, sometimes is a really heavy guy, like seeing him that vulnerable and asking these people he's been fighting against for so long to stick with him, and then flashing to the end of this issue where they all come together in agreement to work with each other and to exist with one another to defeat Khonshu, however you want to interpret that. It's just so powerful, especially after getting so much of his story right before it. And it's been interesting listening to Lena's breakdown of how this sort of thing works, and I could totally see how having this whole I can't remember the exact term, but integrating personalities and what have you, how she laid it out, I could see that being something forced upon someone, not forced, but something that is brought upon by a therapist or an outside influence, being really detrimental and being something that would not work for someone dealing with this issue. But seeing Marc do it of his own accord, and seeing Marc do it out of a place of self-empowerment, he's not getting rid of any of these guys. No. He's not trying to kick them through portals or stab them or anything anymore. He's accepting that they're part of him. I think that's really beautiful for a character this grim. You don't see this sort of beautiful is really the only word I can think of for it, and you don't think of that word when you think of Moon Knight. To watch, I have a lot of friends that deal with really heavy mental health issues, and I've seen when they come out on top of a really dark, really difficult situation, and they don't just survive it, they feel confident that they've improved themselves.
Yeah.
That's a glow about somebody that you care about that you can't replicate. And it's a little out there, but like, we love Moon Knight, and to see him have that victory as someone who never gets victories is it's a really awesome thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've raised on a couple of points there that just really, I guess, make it so impactful as well. I mean, of course, exactly kind of what you say as well of Marc being the person that he is. I mean, we were just also talking not that long ago about how he pushes everyone away, and he's been wanting to get these alters away, or he wants to do that, but there's that kind of I guess tragedy of him being alone, and that moment where he realizes that he may be alone. There's that vulnerability that he shows of hoping that the others are there. It just goes to show that you can be as independent and as strong-willed as you want, but one of the main, I think, values of Moon Knight, and you see it, is his support network. I mean, he's very much seen as a lone wolf, but time and time again, you see with the Mensch run, he calls his friends like Jenna and Crawley, they're his family as well. They're not just people he knows and people that he potentially just uses like Jenna or Crawley. He really values them. And then similar with we were talking about again the Houston run about him pushing people away. Jed MacKay run, the current run, about how he's kind of in a way kind of run away from what we know are his established network, but he still builds a network with
Right, and I've been kind of thinking about it since our last talk about this new network of people. It's kind of striking me that I mean, obviously the Bemis run came after this, and that really did ham up the other personalities in ways that I wasn't particularly a fan of. But like, the important thing is that they were there, they were prevalent. It was somewhat strange getting into the new run and not only seeing this new cast of characters, but not seeing his alters, or whatever the correct term for that is. Other, you're not seeing Jake, you're not seeing, other than the sarcophaguses when those pop up, and it's kind of nice having reread this issue specifically and then hopping into the MacKay. I don't feel like he's keeping Jake or Steven hidden. I don't feel like they're locked away somewhere. I feel like they came to a peaceful understanding with each other back during this event, and they don't feel the need to act out. They're still very much there, but Marc, it's nice to kind of feel like Marc has the Midnight Mission running, and he is functioning in the way that he needs to be functioning, without forcing it. I don't feel like he's fighting. He's not fighting against himself anymore. At least as far as we know. For all we know, that's exactly what he's doing, and that's going to blow up very soon. Who knows? Yeah, it's cool to see how this kind of feeds into some of the modern stuff, whether it was intentional or not.
Oh yeah, no, definitely as well, and that kind of got me thinking again with that final scene where he crushes Khonshu's skull. It's a show of strength. It's a show of unity for himself. But again, you could see it as it's a show of him overcoming. It's nothing to do with him overcoming, in that sense, DID, air quotes. It's more, it's him overcoming this outside influence that Khonshu has had on his brain, which we know again from the Ellis and the Wood run, with Eliza Warsame, which he gets mentioned in the MacKay run. There's this whole thing about Khonshu's, the thing that MacKay talks about being touched by a deity in your mind. So again, I love how this kind of works with the current runs as well. It feeds back into it, and you can see that this defeat of Khonshu. I mean, I think initially I saw it as a sign of solidarity with Marc's identities, which it very much is. But on top of that as well, it's him on top, that other factor of him getting over Khonshu, which again could be it could be perceived as ambiguous here, but you can also take it as Khonshu like being an actual thing, an actual being that has affected him.
Yeah, it's something I've really thought about too. When I was going through the issue today, actually, just to take some notes, the first time I read it, it very much struck me as like, yes, this is clearly signifying him making peace with his personalities and in a way overcoming this mental demon that has plagued him for so long, which is very powerful in and of itself. It's cool that if Khonshu is a real thing, he just banished him out of his mind. I think that's very cool. But rereading it today, there's some parts where the part where he says we've outgrown you, I thought, if you look back at a lot of the old runs, or not even the old ones, but like there's plenty of times in the Mensch runs where, case in point, when Midnight Man takes his statue and he loses it and thinks that he's done for, which he never was. There's so many times where he tries to get rid of Khonshu and he ends up crawling right back to him and getting super jacked on being his errand boy again. And it almost, as the reader who really roots for Marc, it almost makes you like, yeah, I'm really excited that he's still the Moon's Knight of Vengeance. Obviously, I'm going to be on board with that. But it also kind of makes this whole push for his solidarity feel like a defeat when he falls back in line. And so when they say we've outgrown you, I start thinking like, if we're just speaking metaphorically here, he really did feel like he needed Khonshu's influence to justify him continuing to exist for a lot of times. There was plenty of points in the comics where he seemed to have lost all purpose if it wasn't coming from Khonshu. This is one of the first times you see him being completely okay with just being strong for himself.
Yeah. And even at that, if you look at the very end, although he's not even 100% certain, like if this is the way to go, or if this is the true thing that has happened,
it was good enough for him.
It's good enough for now. Yeah. So he's come at that sort of.
I've never, I've struggled with depression, I've struggled with anxiety and stuff like that, but I can't imagine depths that some of those conditions can really take you to when they are really intense. And I could imagine getting when you see the clearing in the artwork and he's just standing there talking about how he's finally having a moment of quiet and peace. Like, if you've ever been in a real rough spot, you know just how loud it is in your head. Can you imagine having 20 plus years of that, but with the influence of actual personalities and things that you think are gods, and constantly having to fight and getting hurt? And I can't imagine the relief he's feeling. And it's so nice as like a fan of him to think like, oh, this poor motherfucker's finally getting a moment's rest. And if it's not entirely real, whatever, good for him.
Just take it when you can, you know what I mean? And that's which is good. Yeah, it is a very nice way to cap off the series. It actually gives him some sort of kind of chance to finally kind of relax. Another point that you may have there, Drew?
I just think we're kind of coming back to the artwork. I think the cover art is genius. I forgot to mention that.
Yes.
Just the big struggle of his different costumes, his different personalities leading up into what obviously the focus of the issue is. I think is one of my favorite covers that they've done.
And again, I mean, hats off to not only Smallwood, but Jordie Bellaire's, I think, colours as well. Here, reminiscent, she's kept a particular palette, it seems, for that kind of Other Void thing. So in that front cover with Khonshu watching on the space at the back, you got those nice bluey greens, but then you get like the purples and it goes into reds. I just love those colours from Jordie Bellaire. Really good.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier how I went and started finding things that Smallwood has illustrated and putting them into my reading list to come back to. Moon Knight is so far the only comic character where I felt the urge to go and look up the colorer. That's because of this run.
Yep.
And can't remember his name. Please correct this. Capuccio? No, he's illustrating
The
new run.
yeah. Rachel Rosenberg's doing the...
Yeah, so I want to go find stuff that she's doing because of how wildly on point the coloring is for this new run of Moon Knight. And there's plenty of good runs for other characters that have wonderful art and wonderful colors, but Moon Knight's the only one so far where I've been like, holy shit, I need to go look up what other issues these people have done colors on.
It's very ironic that for Moon Knight, who was essentially black and white, the colors seem to pop out. So no, again, testament to the fantastic colorers. It's amazing what they do. I couldn't agree more as well with that art as well. Greg Smallwood's art. I touched upon it when I had a chat with him. His detail of the backdrops and backgrounds is just as intricate as his characters, foreground characters, and that level of detail and attention, I think, really pays off for his art. And it certainly works in this issue where you come across that debilitated Khonshu temple where Marc walks up against, and just a look of Khonshu in general as well. The statue, and Khonshu as well. That kind of scratchy, bird-like in the suit, the bird skull in the suit.
Yeah, the weird like distorted outlines of it. It's really cool, especially in contrast with how like vast and beautiful the other Void, kind of art is. He still looks distorted and frightening. Yeah,
you can almost imagine those kind of, I don't know, the movement around him. Like I can imagine it being like animated series or something, and you can see the crackle around Khonshu.
Yeah, like a weird glitchy distortion or something.
Yeah. It's a really cool art there. There's also look, another thing I'll just throw in there. There's also a sequence in here as well, Drew. I'm not sure if you've got this in your notes, but there's this nice little parallel kind of past and present that Lemire uses when, as we mentioned in the Bare Bones, as Marc is being laid down to get shock therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's this really cool thing. It blew my mind in the fact that it's happening both in the past and the present, and it affects the present.
It's the way he does it too. It's almost like fourth wall breaking. I actually did put this in my notes that the flashback, where Khonshu, he's being drugged and laid down on the table, but also Khonshu's like carrying him, and Khonshu straight tells him, "This is a flashback, Marc. It's being intercut with the present." It's fourth wall breaking for you, the reader, but it makes sense in the context of the story. So it's not like Deadpool wall breaking. It doesn't make it weird. And it's such a cool way of them splicing in his very original origin, coming out of what they were telling in the last issue, right before Bushman messed him up. It's a really classy way of doing that whole back and forth thing without it being overly confusing.
Yeah, and it's just a really innovative way, I think, that Lemire has depicted time. Like, really, just to kind of manipulate it for this story. I think it just really, I don't see it that often where that happens unless it's some sort of really time-based, time travel-y oriented story. But it works really well here because it just keeps that tone of this it kind of breaks down time, like deconstructs it, and says it's not something that's necessarily linear, that's happened in the past. These two things can happen at the same time, these actual actions, and that will have, past will have effect on the present, and present will have effect on the past, which is just, really cool.
Right. There's actually a line when he's carrying him here, right after he says the thing about it being flashback being intercut with the present. He says, as they flash back to the modern time where he's getting shocked, Khonshu goes, "Time means little here." Yeah. So it's simultaneously very trippy and time distorting while still being extremely linear.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that was another standout for me as well. Is there another note there? I don't want to, sorry, Drew, because I don't want to just jump in on all the... Yeah.
No, you're good. I have one... I only wrote down one other one, I think. Because reading back through this is a really quick issue. It is. I I don't think it's short, but it didn't need to be any longer than it was.
No.
I think it had everything perfectly timed in here. That whole scene on the rooftop where Khonshu is throwing all these illusions at him.
Yes.
I think is one really cool, just seeing a throwback to all the other villains that are up there with him. You got Bushman, Midnight Man, Black Spector, Scarlet, and the Werewolf. It was one cool, just as fan service to see all of these people that you've shared his history running into. But one thing I actually just noticed as I was looking here is right as he runs out onto the roof, Khonshu immediately switches the surroundings to the surface of the moon, and that's when the werewolf pops out. And something have ranted about with this run, it's funny. When I was reading through whatever issue it is, it's in the second chunk out of the 3. It's an issue where he's really going off the rails, and I would love to talk about this one in the future. I'd have to go back and find the number, but it's an issue where he has openly told Marlene that he's scaring himself, and I think it's one of the most vulnerable points he's ever been, to see this fucking hard ass dude have to break down and tell his partner, like, I'm scared for myself and I don't know how else to voice it. And then he goes off the rails. It's that whole scene where Lockley is being interviewed by the police, and his scenes are red, and then he's all of a sudden on the movie set, and it changes colors, and then he's on the moon fighting against hordes of space werewolves. And there's that whole 2-page spread where he's in outer space fighting with all these moon ships against hundreds of space werewolves. And I'm sitting there, the artwork's incredible, and what's happening is insane. And I'm not in awe of what's in front of me. What I'm in awe of is that I'm seeing this absurd thing, and all I can think of is, oh my God, my poor man's brain. Like his poor mental health. He is really losing it. I feel like Khonshu flashing him back to the moon here when he comes out onto the roof and the werewolf popping out, it took me right back there. And I was just, for a second, I was just like, oh man, not again. And then he comes out on top, obviously. Finally.
Well, it was a massive taunt by Khonshu, bringing him back on that moon. Because as you're saying, like, this is bringing back a lot of baggage that's occurred earlier in the series, and I like it because it touches upon, obviously this is a culmination of the 14 issues, and it touches upon the previous arcs. So you were mentioning that arc with the Space Wolves and the movie set. From memory, I think is that Incarnations? I think it's called that. That was the arc that was preceding this. So that was the 6 issues or whatever, 5 issues before this. So I like how Lemire is really just kind of rounding out. It really gives a sense of closure to this. Similar with the use of the villains, as you say. All the classic villains we get there. So, a bit of a nod as well to the past, but also a nod to the fans as well for them.
I like how he didn't feel the need to ham up any of them. None of them really even get lines besides Bushman saying he has like a score to settle or something like that. They're just there, and it really, like, when he's going through that whole space werewolf cop interview breakdown, that is, for lack of a more sensitive term, that's probably the most insane Marc has ever been. He's really losing it at that point, and you really feel him cracking. To see him walk out on the roof, Khonshu try all of this shit, and him just to be like, nah, this isn't happening. He's almost falls for it, and then he's like, this isn't happening. I'm dealing with you. And it all disappears. It's really powerful for Marc to just watch him finally be like, I'm not dealing with this shit, dude.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Khonshu's doing the old mind game trick on him, and he's working towards his vulnerabilities, and it's like, no. I mean, and as you say, these villains, I think it's great that they come over here. It's really not about them. It's about the overwhelming...
It to, whether Khonshu's real or not, those villains were. And he knows to brush that aside, and he knows whether it's a mental health issue or whether it's an interstellar god, his problem is with him, and he's dealing with it. And that's something Marc has not ever really done.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if we're to bounce back to Smallwood, I think one of the more iconic sequences in this is that the 4 horizontal panels of Marc, Stephen, Jake, and Moon Knight holding Khonshu's head in profile, and then you see it crushed. I think that's one of the most memorable, sequences for me for the Lemire run as well, because again, it shows it's such an impact of Marc. I'm not going to say like merge his identities, but just be at peace with them, like
exactly
be happy with where he is and what he is. So yeah, very, very good stuff. I mean, I love this sort of stuff.
To go to those 4 panels really quick too, like I said, I tried to start with the Lemire run, didn't make sense, so I had to go back and do all the other ones. And in the time I was reading all the old issues, they'd done the official announcement for Oscar Isaac for the show. And in the post that they made, it was him with the artwork behind him, and the caption just said, "We are Moon Knight." And as someone who knew the character, I was like, okay, multiple personalities, we are Moon Knight, that makes sense. I didn't know it was like something he said in the comics because I hadn't gotten there yet. So when I finally got to that panel, like I kind of I remembered back to the Oscar Isaac post, and I was just, oh fuck yeah,
this is that's I know exactly that kind of feeling. You're kind of like, yes, this ties in. It's awesome.
Like, man, I really have like, it really makes me feel like they're going to handle the show the way I'm hoping they handle it.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm still nervous, but I'm also very excited, of course. But I've got faith. I think we're going to get something that's very entertaining, I think. And
at the very least, for sure.
Yeah, and look, I've also tried to manage my expectations and know that Disney and Marvel, they play around with the characters when it comes to the MCU, so there might be some differences.
For sure. I'm sure we're going to get a little bit more lighthearted than what we're expecting, but I'm sure it'll work. I think the humor will be in the right place, and I feel like they're going to I think they know what they're getting into. I think they're going to let it. I mean, I think I heard this brought up by someone else recently on something, but they of all the things, they let Falcon and Winter Soldier get pretty dark for Disney. If they can let Falcon and Winter Soldier dip into the dark territories it went to, I think they're going to let this go a couple places that we will expect it. But I think they'll do a good job of making sure it's not, a Spider-Man or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think they'll make sure it's not going to be. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be they can reach those boundaries without having to explicitly show, like, with the Falcon Winter Soldier, you got the gist when US Agent raised the shield and crashed it down on the guy's head.
Man, how funny is it that just seeing a little splatter of blood on a shield was just like, I remember when he pulled that shield up and I was like, oh wow, they really
exactly.
It's like, well, they didn't. They put a little blood on a shield. It was fine.
Yeah,
but what was implied was like pretty brutal.
Exactly.
So it was dark. It was definitely dark for what I thought they would let go into these shows. So I think that only speaks to what we can expect for some of the things that do have darker tones to it coming up.
Absolutely. Another just the other point here that I was going to raise was the kind of a reference to the classic run. Lemire does it word for word with Marc Spector taking the cloak from the statues. Again, it's a big moment. It's a big moment for Moon Knight in canon when he just gets resurrected and. I'm the ghost, Spectre of the moon's night of vengeance, and I have work to do. That's been replayed. I mean, throughout the run as well, Lemire has played with the Origin. We do get an Origin, albeit slightly different each and every time. Like the amount of different ways that Peter O'Ryan gets killed, either knife, teeth in the neck, all that sort of stuff.
I did like. Could definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but if I am remembering correctly, what I really enjoyed about the Lemire backstory is it showed his time in the military, and it showed the events leading up to this specific mission that went south.
Yes.
And it was really interesting seeing people telling him we shouldn't be working with Bushmen and him pushing for it. And while simultaneously dealing with the his personalities and trying to keep that from coming up. I don't feel like that was really shown before. We were always just kind of plopped into the Sudan where they're already in the middle of everything. So getting to see the lead up, I think, put a little more weight behind things, and put a little more of that mythos behind the emergence of Bushman instead of just being some scary guy who had a reputation popping up. You got to see him going in and purposefully seeking out working with this guy.
Yeah, it certainly was fleshed out a bit more with this Lemire run. The only thing I can think of is back in Moon Knight issue 2, the Houston run where Profile has that slideshow and he's telling everyone about his past. That's you can get a sense of what happened, like Mark's past, but this one you certainly get. I mean, Lemire, that you show the meeting with Bushman, that big reveal. I like that aspect of it. He does flesh it out a bit more. Any other final thoughts here, Drew, before we give this a rating?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have any other ones specifically. This is like I said, we covered the main things, and it really surprised me how quick of a read this one is when you come back to it. It's like I said, it's exactly how long it needs to be. I don't think they needed to add anything else to it. So it didn't feel like it was purposefully short. It just moves perfectly. Yeah.
I mean, and even like if you look at like page 2 and 3 of Mark struggling through the desert at night, I mean, Lemire's, he knows when to add in some dialogue. He knows when to sit back and let the art speak for itself, and I think he certainly does that very well in those pages where it turns into night and Mark starts to hear Khonshu first.
Oh man! And then when he's on the ground in that full page, him in front of the statue, and the only dialogue is on top.
Yep.
Where it says, "Soon you'll know my face."
Yeah.
That page is just so epic. It's so
isn't it?
Put together.
Yeah, it is. It's great. I mean, and I'm just trying to kind of come at roundabout in a practical way of how come the issue does seem so fast. It's because you get very sparse dialogue, but I think it's used to really good effect here. I mean, that's
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, without any further ado, Drew, I'll give you first dibs here. What would you give this? Birth and Death Part 5, Moon Knight Volume 8, Issue 14.
Yeah, so, gonna go with the Kanashi rating system, and as much as I love the big, beautiful yellow man, I have to go with the 10 out of 10, big fuck off moon.
There you go. We love it. We love it when that happens. The good 10 out of 10. That's fantastic that you can't get any more than that. I think I may have given it a 10 out of 10 back in the day as well. Look, I've given it a 9 out of 10. It's fantastic. It's a great read. I think, let me kind of explain a bit. I think 10 out of 10 as a 5-parter. I think, Birth and Death. I loved the whole 5 issues and the way that this kind of caps it off. So that definitely 10 out of 10 for that. A 9 out of 10, I don't know. I honestly don't know why I took that 1 point off as well.
No, but earlier I kind of went back. I had it at like a 9, and then I was like 9.5.
Yep.
I don't, in the context of a singular issue.
Yes.
9 out of 10, because you definitely have to have a lot of context.
Exactly. Exactly. You can't just
couldn't pick it up as a new fan and understand probably any of it.
No. You'd probably be underwhelmed.
Yeah. At the end of an arc issue, absolutely 10 out of 10. Yeah. But so I totally get where you're coming from.
Excellent. Well, there you go. I mean, Loonies, we've discussed this before, but I'd love revisiting these issues. I mean, like the likes, Drew, yourself, you bring fresh eyes, new perspective. It's great how much you can get from good runs and good issues, how much you can get from it, without it just being like, let's just go through the story. And that's a story, there's a lot more underneath it. And I think this is a perfect example of that. So Loonies, an average of 9.5 there out of 10. Go check it out if you haven't already. And urge you, if you haven't read the Lemire run and you know enough about Moon Knight, pick it up. It would be time to pick it up and see what it is about. It's a very different run. I strongly agree it's one of the classics now in the Moon Knight canon. But there you go. Drew, how about we just take a quick short break? And and when we come back, Loonies, we're just going to round out with a couple of a bit of feedback from you for this issue, what your thoughts are. And and then we'll cap off the show. All right, catch you soon.
Perfect.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos.
I think I shall call him Adam.
But return to me again empty-handed, and I will bathe the Starways in your blood.
Thanks, Dad. Sounds fair.
Korvac's power grows, as does his madness. He would have destroyed us all, had I not pulled us into the Soul Gem.
Then Thanos, I'm coming for you.
After Xandar, you were going to kill my father?
You dare to oppose me?
You see what he has turned me into. You kill him, I will help you destroy 1,000 planets.
It's all right, Adam. We're here to help. Just stay cool. I don't want to be here!
Resurrections, an Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast. 5 years and going strong. Every other week. Mostly. For all of your Adam Warlock, Thanos, or Marvel Cosmic needs. Find it on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever else podcasts are available. ResurrectionsAdamWarlock.tumblr.com.
Adam Warlock. You cannot keep leaving your philosophy books open on the floor. I always trip on them in the middle of the night on my way to the can.
Hey everyone, this is Phil.
And Lula.
Of the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
You're listening to Into the Night.
The Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Looney listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 240, and you are with Drew Tombz, one of the top-tier Patroonies, sporting a very Moon Knight-esque visual, and of course your High Priest.
My vestments.
Your vestments. That's it. And we on the other side of the break there, you heard we just had a nice discussion on Birth and Death Part 5, Issue 14. Now, it's not only us that have, I'm sure, many thoughts about this issue. We do have a lot of loonies that gave us some great feedback. So I'm going to throw it to Drew. We got a couple from our Facebook group.
Sure. First one we got here is Noel Tate. The art in this issue is top-notch. As a wrap-up to Lemire and Smallwood's run, I used to find it sort of heartbreaking, but after another read and listening to Lena's take on a previous issue, RE, the DID, I've sort of felt it didn't live up to the potential Lemire set up. Interesting, because I felt like it did, but I get what he's saying. I'm glad he kept the alters, but it left me a little confused considering the aforementioned issue. The writing is beautiful, but the elements don't land as much for me anymore. The quick sketch of the origin of Moon Knight at the top of the issue and his god using Bushman again to antagonize Marc was done well. The emotion Smallwood is able to portray on Marc's face is gorgeous, and a quick backwards looks. The overall continued trippiness of the arc is pretty cool and lands in a melancholy, almost down-to-earth way, which is a nice wrap-up, but still leaves me a little, off. Still, Smallwood's art makes up for any quibbles, 7.5 out of 10 for something between a solid round boy and a big, beautiful yellow man.
Yes, cheers, thank you, Noel. And yeah, I can see where he's coming from as well. Like, revisiting it, it certainly gave me a different experience than reading it when it first came out. And again, like, knowing and learning off Lena as well. So, yeah, totally understand, Noel. Yeah,
so, what I was thinking here is, this last issue, after listening to Lena's discussions on DID, this last issue felt maybe even more so, I don't want to say well portrayed, because that might not really be the case, but more tastefully done and more self-empowering for people who might be dealing with these kinds of things, I felt. Because he's not pushing them away.
Yep.
I don't think he's necessarily, like we said earlier, I don't think he's necessarily forcing these personalities to take a back seat. He's just learning to be at peace with himself, which I think is a very powerful concept for the world of mental health as a whole. However, when I went back and read the issues where he's beating the shit out of Jake Lockley and throwing moon darts, straight up killing the space version of himself, after listening to Lena's discussion, that scene that obviously, for obvious reasons, struck me as less well done.
Yeah.
You know, like she said, you don't want to be stabbing one of your personalities with a moon dart because that's not a good way to get to integrate your personality. So, if anything, I felt like this turns that around a little bit. But totally where somebody's coming from with that for sure.
I mean, if anything, you could potentially say, I mean, again, learning from Lena, it could just show the disarray that Marc is in at that stage, you know, around that arc. So, and I think, at this end here, the fact that we get as you mentioned before, we are Moon Knight, that is a statement saying you're unified, you know. It's not like I am Moon Knight and I've gotten, you know, everyone's kind of merged into me. It's like we're all it. So, I think that's,
again, bless Lena for sharing all of this information.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a cool thing for us as fans of a character that has this, to have someone open to talking about it like this. It makes it so much more interesting for people like us who really do care about knowing how this works for you know, a fictional character that we care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and in real life too. I've not met anybody with DID personally, but just I find the whole thing fascinating, and it's really cool that we get to have that shared in our community.
Oh yeah, me too, for sure, absolutely.
Next one here. So Kyle Carr, by far my favorite cover of the entire run. Gotta say, I agree. I also love how Lemire used the literal dialogue from Moon Knight #1 during the flashback of Marc being reborn. It also seemed to suggest, like Lena has before, that Marc may have a Khonshu altar in addition to the real Khonshu, much like how people have differing views of what God is like to them IRL. That's really interesting, actually.
That's interesting, yeah.
I've never really thought about the idea that Khonshu could be part of his mental construct and be a god.
Gosh, yeah, that again just kind of makes you kind of pause for thought there, as well. A really great concept there, Kyle. Thank you for that. But interesting. I don't know. Again, I'm going to have to kind of ruminate on that one myself.
Same here. I'm going to go back and reread everything and pick parts where I think he's real, parts where it's just his personality.
Yeah. But thank you, Kyle, a fellow Patroony as well. Thank you so much. We've got a couple here from Instagram as well to cap off our discussion. First off is, well, I'm going to say Rafael Santos. That's his name. You would be familiar with his art. I've been showcasing it every week. He drops one. He's set himself a goal to draw every single costume or iteration of Moon Knight throughout the ages.
Oh, that's him.
That's him.
Ooh,
yeah. I don't even know how to pronounce his handle. Rafael Santos is his handle. And Rafael says he's a huge Smallwood fan. This is the best run of my life. That's the issue Moon Knight shows off his own Sinister Six. Yes, Bushman, Werewolf, By Night, Stained Glass Scarlet, Black Spectre, Midnight Man, and Khonshu. The end of this run made me feel at peace I hadn't experienced in years. I still feel Smallwood's inbox with praises for his art on this run. His art on the first page was a reason for me to give a chance to this run. Although I was in a terrible moment of my life when I found out about this run, I'm really grateful for it, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have had searched about heroes with mental issues. Wow. So that's it's quite a important issue for you, Raphael, and thanks for sharing. But again, that's great. I mean, it shows how. And again, like I'm hoping with the likes of Lena as well, it shows how we can kind of learn more about this, and how you can connect with it yourself. So a big thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, like it doesn't have to be a personality, a split personality problem, for you to read this and take positive inspiration from it. I was in a pretty dark place when I started reading some of this stuff, and just just seeing Marc overcome the struggle that you've been watching him deal with for on top of the villains and anything he did with the Avengers and all this other stuff. Like he's dealing with this constantly.
Yeah.
To see him kind of have this one moment of peace and power, it's just really empowering for the reader, and I can only imagine how much more so for somebody who knows how this feels personally.
Yeah. And I think you coined it really well in the fact that it just reminded me how you're saying that, like, Marc, because he's such a, he's a merc, an ex-soldier and stuff. He's kind of tough as nails. and just to see him vulnerable, I like that idea of seeing that. And when I do my rereads of Moon Knight again, I'd like to take that in the back of my mind when I read it. Like, Marc is this imposing guy. He's a heavyweight boxer. He's like over 6 foot tall, over 200 pounds, but he does have those moments of vulnerability, and I think that's what makes him so compelling.
Especially in the world of Marvel, I feel like moments of vulnerability often equate to moments of being whiny or saying, "Oh, I'm tired of things going badly," and like you can feel for that somewhat, but Marc, I mean, in the bottom, he got pretty low where he was being mopey, like, for good reason.
Yeah.
But this is different. This is him being vulnerable enough to say, like I said earlier, when he tells Marlene, like, I'm scaring myself, when he's in the desert and he asks for his personalities to stay with him because he's scared. You don't see Marvel heroes often talking about how they're frightened or how they feel legitimately afraid of not just their health and of dying, but of their well-being. You just see them complaining about their hardships. This is something that you don't see often, and with someone as hard as nails as Marc is, it really hits even harder.
Absolutely, and we're looking at you, Frank Castle, as well, so, you know, I think you can learn a thing or two from Marc Spector.
Right.
And finally, we have from Regular, he's been dropping in some feedback regularly, so that's great. Make Mine Moon Knight.
I love his Instagram page.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It was a strong end. I felt the story overall was a bit stretched out for too long, though. It should have been at most 8 issues instead of 14. Or maybe it could have been a special graphic novel release instead of a series. But for the end itself to the story, I liked it. I personally saw it as being that Moon Knight was handling his own mental stuff. Yeah, exactly. Most see it as a Khonshu being real and everything that happened having been real. For me, by the end of it all, I saw it as Moon Knight working out his demons by himself, probably running around like a lunatic in some abandoned building, all delusional. I saw the Khonshu he was engaging with as a mental aspect of his shattered psyche. Yeah, I kind of saw that at the beginning as well, but you can jump now, back and forth now with the way things have been portrayed. I saw, Gage as a shattered psyche. It wasn't Khonshu he was conquering, but himself. If someone like Moon Knight with his kind of profile in the Marvel Universe's hero community had checked themselves into a clinic for mental issues and then went off the chain and ran around assaulting those clinic workers and others on the street, the other heroes and agencies would have been after him in the following series.
But actually, it's a really good point.
Absolutely, which we've kind of, yeah.
Well, that occurred to me earlier in the series when they make it to the street, and I think it's when Frenchie seemingly gets killed. Yeah, and he just takes out a cop, and all I could think of was like, okay, well, if this isn't a delusion, Marc now has some very real shit he's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's right. The cop was the crocodile right there.
Yeah.
But it all went unnoticed because it was all in Moon Knight's head, which is fine. I only bring this up because the following series has interpreted the previous one by Lemire as having been actual events. They made the redhead doctor real. She wasn't. None of them were. But now she was, which means the story was real, and it wasn't. The events weren't. But due to poor handling by piss-poor editors and Marvel's overall lack of consistency, things got confused further. That's why I try not to get too worked up when I come across news stories that I'm not into. I just view Marvel overall as being a splintered reality of different timelines being meshed together ever since the last Secret Wars event. That, and there's always the oldies to fall back on for reliable storytelling and consistent characterization of Moon Knight. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got the old stories to read as well. I mean, again, I mentioned it a lot. Each of their runs, of the Moon Knight runs, is so vast and different. You know, there are pros and cons of that. And you know, Marvel's not the best with continuity anyway. But to get different stories of your favorite character in different settings, it may involve some, you know, contingencies of there being inconsistencies with past series. So, you know, sure. I let that slide.
I do too. I've always been much more of the mind of enjoying it for what it is, and when stuff sticks and it is referential, it's even more so enjoyable.
Yes. Yeah.
And this does come at the cost of there being runs that I thoroughly just don't like for a character that I love sometimes. I've never outright hated any of them, but there's just ones that I don't necessarily go back to, and I don't necessarily hold a lot of that canon or whatever you want to say. But I've never actively, disliked any of it. Like we were kind of talking about that with Shang-Chi in the last episode. Didn't expect it to be a world-breaking new thing. It was an origin story for a character, and sometimes that entertainment value it's a comfort thing.
Yeah.
I feel like Moon Knight's also benefited from this somewhat too, whereas some characters that are bigger have been so stuck in their pigeonhole that when the new writer takes over, they try to stick to how it always has been. Moon Knight suffered from it, but we've also it stayed consistently fresh. Whether you enjoyed it or not, he's been all over the place. To go from reading something as emotionally impactful and heartfelt as this run, and then going and reading Age of Khonshu, I could see why people can really take gripe with that and not enjoy it, and I fully respect that.
Yeah.
But it was also fun as hell for me to feel this burst of mental health wonderfulness that we get from this Lemire run, and then go watch him lose his shit beating all the Avengers' asses. I loved both of them, so I think it's a cool thing that we get with Moon Knight.
Yeah, no, that's great as well. I have my favourites and my lesser favourite runs as well, but yeah, at the end of the day, look, after McKay, Jed McKay, we're going to get another run, which I'm sure is going to be very different again. This is the trend with Moon Knight. So just enjoy it for what it is. But I don't mind having my pickle with someone every now and again. I get over that sort of stuff anyway. And like you're talking about Age of Khonshu, I'm gonna return to it. I'm gonna enjoy it. Damnation, I'm gonna enjoy it as well. But why not?
It's fun. It's fun after the fact too, and you know not to put too much weight in it.
Yeah.
Luckily, if I'd read Age of Khonshu first and then gone back to something as serious as the bottom, I don't know if I would have enjoyed the bottom as much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true. The sequence of how you read it might really affect your overall impressions. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Loonies, for all your feedback there. Always great to hear from you. Please keep them coming. I love reading them out on the show and discussing it with the likes of Drew. You really do raise some really great points. Drew, a huge thank you once again. It's been awesome. It's been a great fun to revisit this issue, but at the same time, it's great fun to chat with you. First time.
Oh, same, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, over the week, I mean, because I chatted with you earlier in the week, of course. Days ago. But before you go as well, is anything that you'd like to shout out?
No, just I think in the last show I plugged a couple of gigs. Doing Tombz things, playing shows. Got festival in Chicago end of the week. Next week, Pittsburgh, Texas. There'll be tour dates popping up throughout the winter, and then I have a cassette release under my Lurk project coming out sometime in November to keep an eye out on. And I don't remember if it was this episode or the last one, but if any of the community are interested in the music or want anything, just shoot me a DM or something through the group, and I got download codes for any of it. Other than that, just been reading the new Kang and really enjoying it. McKay's new Doctor Strange is great. Been really diving into She-Hulk lately and enjoying her. So just looking forward to hearing more episodes and seeing. Appreciate being on. It's been fun getting to talk about this stuff with somebody who doesn't have too many friends that read this.
I know exactly what you mean. Don't worry. But anyway, you're more than welcome anytime that we can work out a time. And if you want to do a particular comic or whatever, I'd love to have you back on. It's been really fun, just shooting the breeze and just hearing your thoughts. It's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and similar to the last episode, Bloonies, all in the show notes. Check it all out. I'll put all the details for Drew's stuff. And again, as well, Drew, in the community, feel free to post anything like the stuff, the release of your cassette EP. Just chuck it up. I'm happy to. Really great to love to share it around. That's
definitely. I'll make sure to do that.
Cool. Next phase, Loonies, we're going back to, well, it's an idle chat. To be determined what we're gonna talk about, and joining me will be Justin, the Owl Osgood, coming back, swooping in. And
is that my man with the sultry voice?
That's the man with the sultry. Oh, I'm going to tell Justin that. You pump up your bass when you listen to Justin, everyone.
Oh, those baritones.
I'm sure Justin would love to hear that. But anyway, Justin will be back with us for an idle chat, and a bit later on that week, we're doing another other side of the moon, which I believe is what is on the cards. I could be wrong. So just don't quote me. As mentioned, Patreon, if you check out patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight, please check it out. All the incentives there. Releasing bonus episodes for Patroonies. Video, like Drew and I are recording now. We are recording a video. You'll get to see... You get to see Drew, and you'll get to see Shang-Chi.
Yeah, you'll get the Shang-Chi banner. You won't get, if you don't a Patreon,
exactly.
You're not going to see these Moon Knight vestments.
Exactly, and you won't get to see, if you're not a Patreon member, you won't get to see Drew and I go make some coffee in between the breaks. So exciting stuff all around. But yeah, please check it out. Patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight. As mentioned, sponsors at the top of the show. So Daniel doing Fringe Knight. If you can support his Patreon, patreon.com/Fringe Knight 27. That'd be great. You can learn more about Fringe Knight, the character, and there's a lot of incentives there again from Daniel. From Drew, our co-host today, again, so Tombz with a Z. If you go to SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Tombz, you can support Drew's music there. And similar on Bandcamp, Lurk Music with a CK, lurkmusic.bandcamp.com, will give you a whole lot of other EPs and albums from Drew, which is highly recommended. Very cool stuff there.
And if anybody's preferential to Spotify, it's all, you can find it scattered around on there too.
Okay, so just, search Tombz with a Z and Lurk Music CK on Spotify too. As well, incidentally, Drew, I'm going to have to, when I purchase some of your stuff from Lurk Music, I'm going to have to come up with a particular, drop for you. If ever you come back on, I'll get you a sound drop there.
I was going to say, as soon as you mentioned Justin, the owl, I instinctively heard the hoodoo. And I started thinking, what would mine be?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, I was thinking during the break. Don't you worry. And of course, Dreamland Comics. I think we mentioned at the top of the show. Just go up to them, just go up to the counter and just shout "Moon" at them, and you'll get 20% off their store. As well as online.
Access to that secret vault.
Yes, exactly. Where they pull it back and,
it's just full of Khonshu relics.
Yes, it's got the bird armor. That would be cool. You can wear that.
The K needs to bring back the bird armor, man.
Yes, I'd love to see that back again. Also as well, we are part of the collective, a band of like-minded podcasters. We all do character-based stuff or geek culture-based stuff. So go check them out. I've updated the website, the page for that. So like some really cool shows like The Signal of Doom. I'm going to shout them out. Shout out also Inner Demons, a Ghost Rider podcast. Brian just released an episode not that long ago. And I'll say Adeland Rising, a comic book podcast, a little bit on hiatus. Hopefully they'll be back soon, but they've got a lot of episodes there to check out. Finally, email us at feedback@itkmoonnight.com. We have a website, itkmoonnight.com, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal, and Podchaser and Apple Podcasts, open for reviews. So if you'd like to drop us a review, let us know. Let us know if you want to hear more Drew. Very, very fine feedback there. Very fine. Again, great issue that you picked, Drew. Awesome stuff. Other than that,
I tossed this guy up here for the Patreons as well.
There you go, Patroonies. Have a look at that.
You're only going to get a shot at him.
Drew has his own Moon Knight there. So only those with video will know what that is. But anyway.
Got him sent to me in a sandwich bag.
Oh, nice. In a body bag.
Yeah.
Jeez. A big thank you once again, Drew. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much again for having me. It was a blast to talk about, to ramble about these issues to somebody besides my poor girlfriend.
Absolutely. Again, I know exactly how you feel. And as we always say, anyway, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Farewell.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.